Thank you, Madam President. Am I in order for a point of personal privilege?
You're in order, Senator Hogg.
Thank you, Madam President, colleagues in the Senate. Today marks the 21st anniversary of the worst incident of domestic terrorism in the history of the United States. I remember the day vividly. I was finishing my third year of law school, and we had just finished criminal procedure when my teacher, federal judge Donald P. Lay, left the classroom, came back in, and informed us there had been a terrible attack on a federal building in Oklahoma City. I remember watching the television news coverage that day. The bodies of the small children who had been killed in the daycare that was housed in the Murrah federal building. Small children like my then one-year-old son. The dramatic rescue of the last survivor pulled from the rubble that night, thanks to the heroic efforts of the emergency personnel who risked their own lives in the search for survivors. We didn't know about this for a few days, but the routine traffic stop that day that led to the arrest of one of the perpetrators for unlawfully carrying a concealed weapon after being stopped for not having proper tags on his vehicle. An arrest that the state trooper, Charlie Hanger, says was the product of divine intervention. We all know the toll that the Oklahoma City bombing took. 168 people killed, including 19 children, of whom 15 were in the daycare inside the building. The youngest victim was 3 months. Only 6 children in the daycare survived. The victims included 6 military personnel. Overall, there were 99 federal employees killed in the bombing, law enforcement agents, customs agents, Secret Service agents, and a housing and urban development official who happens to be the uncle of former State Representative Kevin McCarthy. In addition, more than 600 other people were injured, some quite severely, and the bombing damaged or destroyed over 300 buildings and many, many vehicles and much other property damage. On January 1st, 2002, I had the opportunity to visit the Oklahoma City Memorial for the victims of the bombing. I was driving home from a trip to visit my wife's family in California with my son, who was then 8 years old, while my wife and daughters stayed in California with the family for a more lengthy visit. And I remember listening to Oklahoma and Arkansas play that day in the Cotton Bowl. It was a nice winter day. And when we arrived at the Murrah Federal Building Memorial site, there were family members, there were Oklahoma football fans, there were international tourists, and of course, there were the empty chairs. If you ever get the chance to see the Oklahoma City Memorial, I strongly encourage you to do so. Now, Madam President, colleagues, the Oklahoma City bombing is back in the news today with the President's nomination of Merrick Garland to fill the vacancy on the United States Supreme Court. And we have not yet had a full opportunity to get to know Judge Garland because the United States Senate has not yet held confirmation hearings. But one of the things we do know about Judge Garland is that before he was a judge, before he became a judge, he was one of the lead prosecutors involved in the investigation and trial of the perpetrators of the Oklahoma City bombing. According to a 2010 article in the New York Times, Garland volunteered to go to Oklahoma City, where he, quote, worked tirelessly to help run the investigation and insisted on doing the investigation by the book to avoid any problems in that prosecution. He made sure there was a prosecutor responsible for keeping victims and relatives informed. He later picked the trial team and supervised it from the Justice Department Central Office. Judge Garland was just one of the many, many, many Americans who performed yeoman service in the rescue, investigation, and prosecution involved in the Oklahoma City bombing. And I want to thank him and all of those for their heroic service to our country in helping to save lives and helping bring the people responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing to justice. There is a larger point, Madam President, on this 21st anniversary. We need to not only remember the devastation and the victims and the survivors and those who served, but we should remember that that is the most extreme manifestation of what happens in this country when Americans grow hate and anger here at home and express such hate and anger through violence. Ours is a country governed by the law, not by people above the law or people outside the law. The law and changes to the law is always the way for disputes and conflicts to be resolved peacefully in this country. So today, Madam President and colleagues, let us renew our commitment to put our country, our Constitution, and the peaceful resolution of disputes ahead of the violence, the hate, the anger that we saw 21 years ago today. Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome, Senator, and thank you. The chair recognizes a senator from Warren, Senator Garrett.